Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to High on History. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Liz. And today we are talking about East Africa, largely. And really what I want to do is start weaving a story of just how sophisticated Stone Age people were.
Okay.
Join us. I do want to start out by noting that not every mistake that we have made in archaeology can be blamed specifically on racism. Now, many of them can absolutely be blamed on racism, bigotry, just plain sort of cultural blindness. But a lot of times when we make mistakes in deep archaeology, it's simply because we don't have enough pieces to the puzzle yet.
Mother Nature ate our homework.
Well, that's definitely part of it. And one of the things that we have been able to correct the record on is the myth of the East African origin theory, what I like to call the Garden of Eden fallacy.
Oh yeah? What do you mean by that? What is that?
So, for a long time, because East Africa today is such an arid landscape, and it was more arid even 50,000 years ago than, say, Central Africa, which is very wet, right?
Yeah.
And in West Africa, which is also
Very wet.
very wet, and up into North Africa, pretty wet.
Yeah.
East Africa is at large parts of it are at really high elevations.
Okay.
There are places in Ethiopia where the people who have been there, the indigenous people of these high altitudes, don't suffer the effects of hypoxia. They're so accustomed to this air, so they've been there forever. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So the climate there is more arid, and what that did in many cases was preserve the archaeological record.
Yeah.
Right? And so when we when we came up with the African origin theory, initially it was believed that Homo sapiens arose out of East Africa. And the idea was that it was an isolated group of hominids that evolved this particular way, that they all evolved in some remote location in East Africa and then spread out from there.
Yeah. Well,
That is not the case.
Yeah, just through what I've discovered with my last episode, that's not the case.
Right. So, we mention this because that means that East Africa is pretty rich in parts of the archaeological record, and we can see its influence on the African continent, and also Central Africa's influence on it, which I'll cover briefly. I forgot to get it typed in here, but there's a very cool technology that actually moved out of Central Africa and could be found all over the continent. So, and we're going to show how amazing that. So now that we know that, yes, mitochondrial Eve did come out of East Africa.
Yeah, she did.
Y chromosome Adam came out of West Africa.
Haplogroup AAO. Sorry, AOO.
AOO.
Yeah.
So they lived thousands of miles apart. And probably
a couple hundred thousand years apart.
Well, I saw at least one estimation where the latest possible estimate for Y chromosome Eve was also the early possible estimate for... You're right, mitochondrial Eve was the first possible evidence for Y chromosome Adam. So they might have been maybe within a couple of 100 years or maybe 1,000 years or so of each other, possibly. But, dating, even at this point, even through genetics, is a little sketch still. They definitely never knew each other. They never had children together.
Yeah, the first haplogroup, Adam, A00, never knew mitochondrial Eve. They were pretty much... What I found, because my next episode, 2 episodes from now, is going to be actually focusing on the haplogroup A00, Adam, which is the Y chromosome that we're talking about.
Right.
So I'm also going to be talking about mitochondrial Eve, because you can't tell one story without the other, really. But in my research, I find Adam showing up anywhere from 320 to 300,000 years ago, and Eve can be as early as 300,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So she shows up pretty much right at the latest Adam shows up.
Oh, okay. I had that backwards. I'm sorry.
But I could actually have that backwards, since that's still an episode away, and I don't have those notes right in front of me directly. That's just what
I honestly don't remember. But I do know that there is a place where it looks like there's no overlap.
There's no overlap.
So I did bring that up for a specific reason. So more and more, the more we look at both the archaeological fossil record, the tool record, So archaeology seems to be hesitant to use the word culture when we are talking about Stone Age and Paleolithic people. And I find that to be probably just misunderstanding. I see clear evidence of culture. We covered some stuff last.
In my episode, we were covering the burial sites of Tolfa Rock Cave.
Exactly.
Showing evidence.
So we're seeing ritual. That means people have a shared belief system. That is literally culture. They have shared art. They have shared belief system. So, I do want to use the word culture, but just to be clear, we've been watching and reading a lot of stuff about this, and specifically the avoidance of the word culture. I mean, I'm wondering if there's an academic purpose for it, or if it's just this deep misunderstanding of who these people are. Because what we're going to cover in this episode is just how sophisticated these people are.
I think it's denial. I think it is blatant that we just don't want to see it as culture development. We want to be the white savior.
Well, I don't know that it's so much that
culture to the world. Europe brought culture to the world. Is how I see it.
Well, generally that's thought to have started in the Middle East. We do tell that story in Mesopotamia and Egypt, and it didn't happen anywhere else, as if they just sprang out of nothing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So but I see it as that it was kind of where culture didn't develop anywhere else in the world until right there, and I'm seeing
I just don't see it that way. And we're going to get into that a little bit in this episode.
And we'll definitely be getting into it in my next episode with Paleolithic North Africa continued.
Right. So, let's see here. I went all out of order here, too, so...
I'll give you a second to catch up. Speaking of Paleolithic North Africa, that will be aired on Friday night. That means you get 2 episodes this week. And that also means from now on, we will also be airing on Friday nights.
No, don't say also like we're going to be airing on Tuesday and Friday.
No, yeah. We are moving
to Friday nights. Yeah, for scheduling. We both actually work jobs, so, schedule.
Gotta pay the bills.
Yeah, we kind of covered. Oh yeah. So we go from this Garden of Eden fallacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is that humanity started in a single time, in a single place. They arose in isolation.
Yeah.
And what the both the genetic and the tool record actually shows is that Homo sapiens developed, in part, from Homo florensis and other hominids who were already becoming more and more advanced.
Mm-hmm.
They are trading and, mingling.
Yeah, they are.
And humanity really arises actually from everywhere in Africa. All of these hominid species that were developing in Africa were, I mean, I'm not saying all of them. I'm sure some of them were really quite competitive, or quite warlike. I'm sure more people got lost in the mix than we will ever know.
Right? Absolutely.
But that said, the great strength even of our hominid, and we were walking the planet with these people. They were already there. It wasn't like, oh, Homo erectus, boom, Homo sapien, bam.
Yeah.
That was not the case at all, as we've already shown. Right. So they were more cooperative than combative.
Yeah.
And this is called the coalescent African origin theory.
Yeah.
So all of humanity arises out of all of Africa, not just East Africa. It's just that in the case of this particular misconception, which was still being taught when I was a kid, it was that the fossil record was really well preserved in East Africa, and then DNA even seemed to confirm it, like, ooh, mitochondrial leaf, East Africa, right where we expected it to be.
Right.
So all the evidence, pointed us there, and we went in over and over and over again. We have gone in.
Yeah.
If you ask the wrong question, you get the wrong answer. So,
absolutely.
So the whole a priori assumption that we're going to find a single origin point misled us into seeing what was not there.
Yeah.
There's, and you're running into this, as I understand it in your research. There's also the fact that Central Africa is very, very wet.
Oh yes, it was.
In the times we're talking about, it is teeming with wildlife.
I mean, Lake Chad was referred to as Lake Mega Chad, and it took up 95% of what we call the Sahara Desert now.
Yeah.
95%, that fucking big lake! Sorry, that's a big lake though. That's all of, North Africa almost is a lake.
It was massive. We really got to start with the graphics. I know. Completely This is going to be a slightly shorter episode because this was a very difficult week in terms of work, in terms of just things going on.
Mm-hmm.
So... Okay, so let's move on to these tools, because this is the part I really wanted to get to. Oh, right. Okay, so all these hominid species, they were intermingling, and they were, many of them, I think the record is starting to show, more advanced than we initially gave them credit for.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, Homo sapiens, they arise 300,000 years ago, and they're running around with archaic humans for a really long time, but they themselves are advancing. Homo florensis and so...
Oh, yeah.
I didn't look up when Homo florensis died out. I really should have.
They're
not still around 50,000 years ago, are they?
Yeah, they are.
Oh, yeah, they are?
Yeah, they are.
Okay. So we're running around
somewhere
with other archaic humans in the time when Homo sapiens have been on the planet for a couple 100,000 years.
Yeah. Well, 50,000 years ago, Homo falensis was mingling with Neanderthals, and that's where we get the Mosturians that were trading with the Etrurians that I was talking about in my last episode.
Okay.
So they were absolutely still around.
And so this notion that Paleolithic mankind was combative and lived in a savage world and was beating each other over the heads with clubs and sticks. Absolutely not a shred of evidence really supports that.
No, they were extremely sophisticated.
The weapons we're finding, for the largest part, have specific purposes.
Oh, they do.
They do. And this is where it like, kind of, you really start to glimpse the level of sophistication. So, during the course of my research this week, I guess it was mostly last week. This week was super wonky. Things got very, very busy at work very quickly. So, the tools that are being made in this time are just far, far more sophisticated than I thought they were. And I'm going to show you why and how that is. I certainly went into this, I guess, thinking, oh, stone tools. Not sophisticated, not that... I think, we even use the stone tools are not sophisticated. Those things are,
but there was a lot of precision behind making the tools. They were precise. They were very sharp. They had specific.
And so I want to get into some of how that is, and we are going to start with complex adhesives.
I mean, like, what's so complex about adhesive?
Okay, so a glue is if you were to take a pine sap, right? And stick two objects together with the pine sap, and, it'll stick.
Yeah.
Right? At least for a while.
Yeah.
That's a glue. It's got one element. Now, maybe you treat the element in some way, but it is one single ingredient. That is technically a glue, at least for these purposes. I know. Elmer probably has something different to say about that.
Fair. Okay, but Paleolithic tree sap is a glue. Pine sap is just a basic glue.
Correct. Now, a complex adhesive is taking multiple different things and working it together to make a sturdier, more pliable adhesive. So what the people in Africa were doing is they're taking this stuff called acacia gum.
Okay.
And ochre comes up again, like it always does.
Everywhere.
Ochre's everywhere.
They love their colors.
They did, and it's got some neat properties. Anyway, we can get into the properties of ochre. We probably should, at some point, get into the properties of ochre to explain why it is so neat.
Right.
I'm kind of surprised I didn't do that, actually. That's an oversight on my part. Anyway. So you'd have to fine grind the ochre, right?
Of course.
And we've got evidence that they were absolutely doing that, grinding it fine. And then you take the acacia gum, and you take the render of what are called fatty bones.
Okay.
I didn't do the lookup on that either.
A fatty bone. Okay.
Yeah, but basically, so you're rendering. I'm assuming the big chunky bones, right?
Right. Like a ham hock.
Right, and you're rendering the fat from those, and so you're mixing these all up, and it's gonna create a adhesive, a binding adhesive.
Whoa.
And why are you doing that? Because you're hafting tools.
What's hafting?
So hafting is, instead of just taking a stick and trying to tie a rock to it.
Yeah.
Like, Hafting is where you're going to take your point, right, and you're going to seat it inside its handle.
Oh, okay.
Right? Now, you can't just like make an obsidian point, thunk, wrap it up, be good to go. No, that it actually requires a pretty sophisticated process. Wow. Like it's craftsmanship. So the acacia gum, depending on the time of year it is, depending on how the weather's been, depending on the age of the plant, the acacia gum can be either super liquidy, or it can wind up being super stiff. If it's super stiff, less ochre, maybe a little more fat render. I'm not really sure about the recipe myself. If it's super liquidy, you have to add a lot more ochre. So each time you're harvesting the acacia gum itself, you're getting a different product.
Okay.
And so that means they knew exactly what to do with each of these variations in their environment. I'm assuming also the oak, not every rock is, necessarily equal in properties. So they know exactly how finely to grind it. They know exactly what consistency they need the acacia gum to be. They know exactly which bones are the best to render this fat from, and exactly how much to mix into the mixture. And it gets even better.
Oh, cool.
So, again, it's not just, we slather this on, we stick it in there, we wrap it up, we're good to go.
Yeah, right.
It requires curing.
What?
It does. And so, here's the thing. We don't have a lot of the handles.
Of course not. The wood got eaten by Mother Nature.
Yeah, Mother Nature ate our homework is going to be like our refrain. Our information in Central Africa is actually a little light in this era. Like what Jordan and I at least were able to get a hold of. Because the hippopotamus, the alligator, the rivers, the jungle, is the fact that it turned from a jungle to a desert, all of that
ate our homework.
Ate the archaeological record. It's just gone in many cases.
Now, do you happen to know what part of, you're talking about East Africa, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What part of East Africa they found evidence of this adhesive?
No, I don't remember at all. And I didn't write it down. I got so into the process. I did. I should have written it down.
Because I know my people, the Atarians, were all over East Africa at that time too. And I'm just kind of curious if it was different conglomerations. Because people up in Morocco, which is where I'm at, did not have this technology.
So, if I don't want to be wrong, I think the process that I'm describing here came out of South Africa more than East Africa, but I honestly do not remember. And remember, South Africa is also where we have Lump's Cave. Some of this should have come out of Ethiopia, some of this from evidence in Kenya.
Okay.
And it is one of those things that moves through the entire continent right around this time. And that is, again, because these people are trading with each other. They're talking to each other. The notion that there's these isolated, warring bands of people, I don't see the evidence for that. Their spears are for hunting, not for war.
I definitely
for the
see
largest
the same
part.
thing.
I see trade and agreement and, I'm not saying misunderstandings didn't happen. I'm not saying there weren't battles
There's
there.
absolutely misunderstandings.
I'm sure there was. But for the largest part, these people are sharing and they're working together. And one of the ways we know that is, for example, there's obsidian that you can only find in Kenya.
Okay.
But they found two things from it. 230 kilometers away from and they actually have the original rock. They're like, yep, this is the rock that this obsidian came from. But that obsidian is 230 kilometers away.
No way.
It is. In fact, it's actually in your part of the world. And they found two types. this is another thing, like, I will finish hafting in just a second, but just let me make this point, because this is very cool. They also find this with church points throughout the continent. They were not just trading, like, specific the finished tool, and they weren't just trading raw product, which you would kind of more expect. Oh, here, chunk of obsidian. No. They had assembly line, sort of. I don't want to say assembly line. That gives people maybe too organized of a picture.
Production.
But they had mass production in a way, and they made all these blanks, and so they would trade blanks to other people, and then those people would take. And this again shows the level of sophistication these people had, because you'd buy a bunch of blanks or trade for a bunch of blanks would be my assumption, right?
Yeah.
And then each of those blanks was designed to be turned into any number of tools. So you could turn them into arrowheads, you could turn them into spearheads.
What's the shaving tool called?
Oh, scrapers?
Yeah,
I think they're just called
I think that's all they're called, scrapers.
So back to the hafting. So you'd take your blank, right, and then you chip it into the shape you needed it to be, and you'd leave this sort of what we would call today a tang, right? Leave this sort of tang, right? Now, like I said, we don't have the actual handles.
Yeah.
But given this level of sophistication, one of the things we can assume is that they know that the wood probably needs to be moist when they make this handle. They know how to split it just exactly right. They're doing as much to cure the wood from these handles.
This is a different level of intelligence you're talking about.
We see significant cognitive advancement in this time, and that's just the tool making. Like, there's a bunch of artistic and symbolic stuff, too, that is happening. Like, we start really seeing artistic evidence in this time. Again, how we're not seeming to call this culture for some reason, I just have a real hard time. Because there's more symbolism. They literally get fancier. The tools get finer. They get smaller. They get more specialized.
Wow.
So they know how to make different handles for different tools. They know exactly how to shaft the point into the wood. And this is where all those years of learning to work with fire, well, hundreds of thousands of years by now, of learning to work with fire really start paying off too, because one of the things we know by this point is how to use the fire and the temperature, how to like measure the temperature and keep the temperature of a fire steady enough that we knew exactly how close to get these things to cure them. You get this too close to the fire,
and you burn it.
Well, it'll bubble, it'll melt.
It won't do what it's supposed to do.
It will not do what it's supposed to do. I mean, this is gum, this is resin and bone fat. You get this too hot, it's gonna melt all over again and fall apart, right?
Yeah.
If you don't get it hot enough, it's not gonna firm up the way you want. And so you've got to actually really know exactly where and how to manage this heat.
Rotate it so it dries evenly.
What I do not actually know that part of the process. I would assume that has something to do with it.
It would all be perfect.
And then you also have to have pretty good control of your fire. You are also keeping it at a fairly consistent heat, right?
Certain type of flame.
You know, when you're moving that a little bit,
using a specific type of kindling, even. You
might be using specific types of wood. I know that grapevine burns very, very hot, and it burns forever. You just wouldn't even believe how long and hot a grapevine will burn.
That's a good point.
So, they probably, these people know that's another thing this record shows. These people also understand the properties of the things in their environment precisely.
Yeah.
There is some circumstantial evidence that as much as 70,000 years ago in South Africa, a place called Sibidu Cave.
Okay.
They may have been using snares,
like trap snares?
Yeah, basically. I believe that in hunting terms, a trap is different than a snare, and I'm sure we're talking about fairly simple snares. But then again, snare technology has not gotten significantly more advanced since the Stone Age. Sometimes the technology just works.
I mean, that makes sense.
I do want to emphasize the evidence. Like, everywhere I saw this mentioned, it said circumstantial evidence.
Yeah.
But to set a snare,
Yeah.
you have to have patience, creative process, and you have to understand how your prey moves, how your quarry moves. Snares are for small ground animals. Ferrets, ground squirrels, grouse, that sort of thing. Anything that's going to get its neck caught in something.
Yeah.
Right? And so you're studying the specific movements and the way that a creature's going to react. Like, these people had different education than we did.
Yeah.
They were in no way less advanced, like cognitively advanced, really, than we are. Clearly, and it's very, very evident. And again, we're even seeing time for artistic expression in this time. Yeah. I know you're going to get into that a lot. I'm actually not going to get into that too much tonight. But one of the things that it shows us is also that these people had the time to sit and hone their crafts.
Yeah, absolutely. They had time to work
They
on
knew exactly how to strike these stones. They knew exactly how to cure the wood. They knew exactly how to make the adhesive.
Mm-hmm.
They took the time to make good weapons.
Yeah.
And so, again, that image that at this point, 50,000 years ago, nowhere is safe, everyone's at war, we're just beating each other over the heads like idiots. None of that is the case.
Seems like we were really civilized, or at least there was some sort of culture. I'm throwing
I would throw both the word civilized and culture at it. The notion that this was not civilization is nuts to me. This was very clearly a advanced, multicultural civilization.
I mean, absolutely.
Before anyone else on the planet, really.
I mean, with the haplogroups that I talked about in my last episode, the stuff that I will be talking about in West Africa, I mean, it shows that the diversity of cultures coming together to create populations, to bring life to the world around it as we know it. I do definitely believe that our next few episodes we will definitely be talking a lot more about culture development, because I've got some beautiful things to talk about coming up for sure.
Yeah. I had written a conclusion that didn't get typed up. I want to briefly read over it to see if it's worth including. But basically, the notion that stone tools themselves are unsophisticated weapons is also very clearly absolute nonsense. This is clear everything I see says this is craftsmanship. Well, this is craftsmanship as anybody would understand it today.
We've been exploring stone tools specifically for like the last 8 or 9 episodes almost. That's how amazing they are. Yeah, that just shows how amazing stone tools are. We started with the Lameke sites, 3.2 million year old stone tools, and here we are 50,000 years ago still talking about how amazing the development of stone tool culture is. Like, you just brought adhesives to the table. Like, what? I couldn't believe that. And dude, when I talk on Friday, I'm gonna be bringing in all sorts of information about beads. I'm gonna be talking about the different type of tools. I'm gonna be.
I am so interested in the beads, the shells and the beads. This was just some of that was just mind blowing to me. And this, like, what it takes to make a stone axe, to make a stone arrow, to make spears. Oh, I forgot. So one of the technologies that also spread out over the continent, I should have mentioned this. So in the world of fishing, out of Central Africa come these barbed points.
Oh,
I got these actual.
I forgot all about those.
Yeah, those also start showing up right around the same time, all over the continent. You know, they're in East.
So cool.
So they're using these waterways as part of their way to travel,
Yeah.
and they are clearly trading. I'm just gonna read this conclusion.
Go for it.
All right. When we began this journey, Jordan and I divvied up the continent and had a rough idea for breaking up the eras from the end of the Pleistocene, the Paleolithic era, through the Mesolithic era, and into the Neolithic era. We intended to explore the continent by regions, but what we discovered is that to really tell this story, we need to largely banish any notion of clear delineation in evolution, technological advancement, symbolic, creative, and abstract thinking, either regionally nor by era. Instead, the picture that emerges is a mosaic of human African advancements and genetic evolutions that have their roots across the entire continent, spanning thousands of years, through excellent adaptability to massive climatic shifts. At times, these groups traded and mixed with each other, trading everything from raw materials to the partially constructed blanks. And of course, they're intermingling. Cultures advanced in pockets, and then advanced further when they would come together.
Yeah.
Whenever the weather permitted, right?
Right.
I don't mean the weather. I do actually mean climate. There are periods where the climate shifts, kind of shoves everybody into their own corners.
We were
right?
talking about it in my last episode.
Exactly so. And then they come together. And it's in this. So each culture, when they get pushed out, they advance.
They develop their own.
They develop,
unique
and then they
ways.
get to come together, and they share those advancements together. And this happened over and over again. Exactly. And so, by the time that Homo sapiens are leaving Africa, which, you know, we will actually be leaving Africa and covering Paleolithic everywhere else, as you know, at some point. But what is here is often erased. It's not talked about enough. It's not given enough time. It's not given enough attention. And we don't want to short that story.
Right.
So, you know, this is where all of that begins, all that culture.
Absolutely.
And it's a beautiful story. It is an amazing story, absolutely worth telling.
Yeah.
It also completely undoes
everything. It rewrites everything we know.
Well, I was gonna pick on the Anunnaki myths, but,
Anunnaki.
you know, and it's a great fairy tale, but it is a fairy tale, and one of the things that I definitely am frustrated by is that it depends on the erasure of what we cover, just how sophisticated
it really does.
we really, really were. You know, and we're finding evidence now, and we always thought of Neanderthals, and we're going to get to this at some point, but we always thought of Neanderthals as brutish or whatever.
They're not.
And it turns out they're not really.
No, I talk actually about the Neanderthals in my next episode.
And I meant to cover Homo florensis a little bit, and why there's
to get to the hobbits.
Well, I thought I was getting to the hobbits. Are they your area?
I thought we were going up to Levant, Cambodia, following the migration path. We both get Homo florensis. Homo florensis is just the Homo Homo again. Homo florensis is their obviously like scientific name, but their generic name is Hobbit because of their short stature.
I know, but where are they from?
Southeast Asia. Oh, so we're going up to the Southeast Asia, I thought, next. Or are we going to Europe? If we go to Europe, we talk about Neanderthals next.
I thought we were headed to India.
India would be Homo florensis, which is Hobbit.
Yeah, okay.
Ish. We don't know what else is out there yet. I just know that's Southeast Asia is where Homo florensis, Hobbit is. And we're going out in Cambodia, India, which is where they're from, as far as I know.
Cool. So, but we do not want to short the majesty, and I think the if you were looking for the actual Garden of Eden,
Yeah.
it's a whole effing continent.
Yeah. During a whole evolution time period. During the Ice Age.
Yeah.
This is during the entire Ice Age. 50,000 years ago, most of Europe, most of Asia, most of North America was under miles of ice.
Yeah. Not that there wasn't life happening there. Don't
There
get
was
us wrong.
absolutely
There was
life. And we will get there. But in Africa specifically,
cultures were thriving. They were doing really, really well.
Yeah.
You know, it was not a massive...
Its entire area was a Garden of Eden.
It was.
And that includes the Levant region, too.
It does.
It includes all of the Levant.
It also doesn't take long to include the Iberian Peninsula either.
Yeah,
I mean, they're just like you look on the map and you're like, yeah, that's like a pond jump.
I don't get into it in my next episode of North Africa continued, but in West Africa during the Paleolithic period, I actually will get into the crossing over of Neanderthals and the Iberian Peninsula.
Hey, was that very cool boat that we wanted to cover in your region?
That is coming up.
Yay! Okay.
Yes.
So, that's going to be it for us tonight for High on History. Thank you so much for being here. As always, I know you probably get tired of hearing it in each and every YouTube video you have to watch,
If you like what we're doing here, please hit that like button. And if you really want to let us know that we're doing our job right, share us with your friends so they can dive into this rewrite of history. And please, by subscribing...
It's not really a rewrite. It's just correcting the rewrite. No. When you say rewriting history, you're generally assuming that you're taking actual history and...
Okay, fair. I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, by sharing us, you help us reach our New Year's resolution of 100 subscribers, and we are at 27 the last I checked. So we are a quarter of the way there with 1 month into the year. 1 month into the year, we got 27 subscribers. So we can totally hit 100 by December 2025. Let's do it, guys. So we got this, and because of viewers like you, thank you.
Live long and prosper.
Bye.